The Quran in chronological order, Arabic English, translator Sami Aldib Abu Sahlieh. There is two main groups of strengths about this commentary. The first is that it does something that you can't do with any chapter of Genesis or much of the Tanakh, or what they call the Old Testament, nor can you do it with any significant portion of what they call the New Testament and include all the variations in one place. Because, the New Testament has over 10,000 Greek variants. I forget the exact number. And you encounter a similar problem with what they call the Old Testament. And he proves that, unlike with the Bible, these variants don't result in a contradiction. Even when you look at the variants in terms of scholars saying, well, if this was this, but there's where you get into some of the problems. It's like, well, the Quran is in Arabic. So don't give me this stuff that's like, well, we found something in Hebrew or Syriac or something that gives it a little bit different of a meaning. Some of these are just kind of silly, like, okay, fine. The best grapes ever. I'm not going to criticize Paradise because you tell me that the best grapes ever. But the second thing we get into here that's a benefit is the reference to Judeo-Christian scripture and commentary, which is very extensive and should increase your faith in Islam from a Judeo-Christian perspective by saying, hey, this supports this. And why did they change? If this is by Parn in Western Arabia, why do they ignore that altogether, right? Now we can say that similar terms for Mecca and stuff could be why they picked up terms elsewhere because of the meaning. But there's where you get into some of the issue too. With his comment, he's like, well, in the Bible, the Quran's trying to obscure this bit about beheadings and stonings and burnings and all that sorts of stuff. So the punishments for adultery and stuff that are stereotypical of the Islamic world actually ends up being a Christian thing. And I'm not sure quite where we can show this. So yeah, the Kufic, the modern, the Quranic way of the text, the different ways you can write the same sound, you're going to see a lot of this in, the footnotes and stuff like that. But this bit here, you're going to, it's like, well, the abrogation, never does the Quran say there's abrogation of the Quran. Never. In the Hadith, you find the legend saying that Muhammad said that the Quran abrogated his sayings. Like he would generally, unless he knew better, do something that was, in line with the people of the book or in line with, Arab tradition, unless it seemed like it was the wrong thing to do. So, but the Quran's an effectual text. It's like there's not actually gaps in the text. And there's not really dislocations. You find quite explicitly, if you follow the linguistic pattern, you see that things fit. If you look at the historical narratives, you find out, okay, this was mentioned here, and this goes after this portion here. So the placement and order of the Quran rather than being problematic, if you follow it as an effectual text, as a revealed text, it doesn't cause the problem. I mean, even if you consider that's what it's trying to represent, if you don't happen to believe that. Now, the abrogation sort of thing that he talks about also presents sort of a problem in terms of so many good things. He's like, oh, Surah 9:5 and Surah 9:29 and a couple others. Like, well, you can follow both of them, and never, even in his translation, you never have this idea that anyone's punished for mere blasphemy, mere disbelief, mere apostasy. Those weren't why the wars were fought. Even this translation points out there was no jizya for just being a non-Muslim. Tribute wasn't just people are non-Muslims. There's nothing in the Quran saying that you, like some of the Zoroastrians, hunt down the animals you don't like, and people killing pet dogs and mistreating women and chattel or being born into slavery and all that sort of stuff. Fighting male and female circumcision. You don't find that in the Quran. You don't find you don't find this stuff supported by the Quran. Now, if people pick apart legends and sort of stuff, okay, that's their business, isn't it? But there's a difference between the claims of religion as revealed and inspired and what the clergy and politicians do with it later, and what the populace itself does with it. But at times he makes it sound like, well, the Quran's not upholding the biblical law. Well, like, why did Jesus in the Bible have to restore the law? What was that about? But as I said, for it consults earlier translations. I think most done by Muslimin for the most part. I don't think he's consulting any. I don't remember him consulting any of the ones that were done deliberately to cause issues, like the George Sale one. And J.M. Rodwell is a bit more faithful, but he wasn't completely faithful in his translation. A spiritual text should stand for itself. There may be side authentic information, even among how the later generations understood and practiced these things. Some of the things that we don't quite understand is like the Quran, like for example in Surah 9, they're saying that immigrants have special rights, right? But people going through the land, they could be considered, whatever crime they're charged with could be kicked up a bit, because it's like, you can't, give leeway to those whose intention is to spread corruption in the land. So somebody with a crime that maybe you get whacked on the back a good number of times, maybe that's an execution crime with somebody who you're looking at maybe an invader. I mean, that's an example of what you can look at, but I'm not saying go attack illegal immigrants or anything like that. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. But you should find that, or the Quran doesn't accept some of the biblical creationism sort of stuff. It's like, well, yeah, because it's supposed to be in line with science and supposed to be getting you looking into these different things. So there is difference between, there's stuff about Islam that's different from Christianity, Judaism, other faiths, different secular philosophies. That's undeniable. But is it personal taste that makes these differences? I mean, do they even exist for everybody who's looking into this? Or and what is the reason for those differences if they're the case? But looking at the Quran and the order that you say that it was taught to Muhammad, or Muhammad first taught it to the people, that's an important thing to do too. But yeah, I like that it has all these variants, and I can't think of any spot in particular where the translation itself was. Oh, I guess there's a couple spots, but they tell you when it's not. Usually it's translated this, but we translate it this way because of this. So there's a handful of cases like that. But they do, they don't let you, they don't seem to, Sami Aldib Abu Sahlieh. I think that's supposed to be Abdullah. He doesn't hide what the translation is. So